Caddis Emerger. You got two color combinations in this box. I'm going to be tying the cinnamon color variation. You also got one to do an olive variation as well. So we're just going to go ahead and start our thread right here behind the eye of the hook. And we're just going to work our way back to our material tie-in point, which is just going to be right above the barb of the hook. Okay, and then from here we're just going to take our piece of poly yarn, just the cinnamon colored poly yarn here. We're just going to cut out a little section for the tail here. I don't use it too much, just a sparse little tail. I might even take a little bit more out of that, just something like this here, just a few strands. And we're going to tie that in just right off the top of the hook shank. Bind all those butt ends down and then just return to our tie-in point. And then I like to leave this a little long. I usually do about half the length of the hook, about how long I have that tail there. And then next we're just going to tie in our ribbing. This is just pearl flash, just the 16th, size 16, sorry. And we're just going to tie that right here at the tie-in point, and we'll leave that hanging out the back. And then we can just proceed to dub the abdomen of the fly. And we're using the cinnamon hare's ear dub for the abdomen. We'll just go ahead and just create a thread noodle, just dub that onto your thread tight. And then we'll just start to wind that up the hook shank. And as I do, I try to just make just a nice tapered look to the body, so it's going to be a little skinnier at the back and then get a little thicker as we get towards the wing. But you can definitely add too much, so just watch it as you go. You just don't want to add too much, and then you don't want to crowd the wing area right here where we're going to tie in our elk hair. So I'm going to stop right there about that quarter point, and I'm going to bring my ribbing through the dubbing. Just nice even spiral wraps here. Just adds a little flash to the fly. Bind that down good. Okay, then we're going to add two wing sections here. So the first wing section is going to be our poly yarn again, and this section I'm going to make it a little thicker than the tail. So I'm going to probably double what I had from the tail. So all this does is just acts as that emerging wing as that caddis floats or swims to the top of the water column. And it just looks like it's in that really vulnerable stage as it's starting to emerge. So I'm just going to cut those ends flush and then tie that in just right at the front of my dubbing, and just kind of pull those back so I get as much of those butt ends out of there as I can. And I'll actually wrap back just a little bit into my dubbing here. And then I'll go ahead and cut that wing just short of my tail. So it's not quite even with the tail there, just a little bit, almost even with the bend of the hook more. Okay, so next we're going to tie in our elk hair wing, and I like to keep this really sparse. I don't want this to be like an elk hair caddis with a big full wing. This is just acting as that wing as it starts to bud out, as that caddis starts to emerge. I like to have this fly sit under the surface of the water. So I'll put that in my hair stacker with the tips facing down, give it a few taps on the table, and then I like to pull it so that hair stacker is horizontal, and as I pull that out, those tips are facing the way they're going to be tied in. And then I'll clean out any little either broken tips or butt ends that got trapped in there. Then we're just going to go ahead and line those tips up with our poly wing. And then just bring our thread around just like we would in any normal elk hair cast. I'm just going to pull down, kind of get that hair to flare. And then I'm just going to pick these butt ends up and just wrap through them just to help secure all that in. You could add a little bit of glue here too after you trim these butt ends down. And then we're just going to trim these butt ends really close as we can to the thread without cutting into our nice pretty elk hair tips there. And then I'll just mash the rest of that down with my thread. And I'm going to come back, and you can kind of see how I have this dead space back here under my wing. So I'm actually going to wrap back to make sure I get all that with the dubbing. And that just kind of helps that hair flare a little bit more. And then we're going to use our sow scud dubbing here. This is just kind of a gray color here. Just acts as the head of this fly. You don't need a lot. We're just going to get enough just to cover up our thread and those elk hair butt ends. And then we'll just wrap forward, just create a nice profile as it kind of tapers down to the eye of the hook. And then I can go ahead and do a couple wraps right there behind the eye, and then we're ready to whip finish. And that's all it is. That's your elk hair, or sorry, caddis emerger. This is a good flighted trail behind an elk hair caddis during a caddis hatch. Just let it kind of sit there in the surface, and fish will come up and whack that as it looks like a little caddis starting to form into an adult. So tie them up and let us know how you do with them. And as always, just remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos to come, and enjoy.